On the CSG companies, they don't really care how they treat you, really. One representative of the company said, look, if you get a negative effect of CSG, well, so be it, cop it and move forward.
Well, George was the very first campaigner. You know, he was the very first one that sort of went, hang on, I'm not going to accept these answers, I'm going to start asking questions.
And for 10 years, George Bender asked questions. He asked why a couple of his water bores had run dry after the arrival of nearby coal seam gas wells. He asked why CSG companies could come onto productive farmland, and why, in his opinion, they had more rights than the landowner.
This property here is under Arrow, and we've another property that's under Origin Energy, which is going to be, which they want to come on and put a dozen wells on at the moment. So you're dealing with that every day of the week virtually.
It escalated to the stage where they tried to buy his property, which is like cutting your arm off. A property that George has nurtured for years and is proud of. And I don't think anybody should be put under the pressure of having to sell to some multinational company.
Grazier Joe Hill had one of his regular phone chats to George Bender just a few days before his good mate took his own life. He says it wasn't just the CSG companies taxing his friend. There were also contamination concerns from the nearby Link Energy underground coal gasification plant, which is now the subject of a criminal prosecution for allegedly causing serious environmental harm, a prosecution Link is defending.
George has been really affected on all fronts. It doesn't matter which way he goes, he's been attacked.
And poor Joe, I sit there and I go, oh my God, what are you going to do without Dad?
When told the terrible news about her father, Helen Bender rushed home from Brisbane to join her mother and the family. She says George had recently been grappling with Origin Energy, which wanted to buy Chinta, one of the family's properties.
I think he just felt completely alone, lost, helpless. And I think his biggest fear was thinking he was going to be a failure and not being able to keep them off Chinta. You say no, they just force. And you're looking at land court.
Origin Energy has offered its condolences to the family and says it conducts business in line with its commitments to farmers and the communities in which it operates. When I arrived out at Hopeland to see the Bender family, I was told to meet them at Chinta, among fields bursting with wheat, barley and chickpeas. When I was last here, George talked about this being a bumper crop, one of the best in years, and he was right. But just 2 days before their father's funeral, his 4 sons have come together to bring the harvest in.
Yeah, he would have been proud of this crop. It's probably be our best this year, and he's not going to see it. So it would have been nice for him to see it.
The death of George Bender has been felt beyond the fields of Hopeland. Vigils have been held around Australia, and there have been calls for more scrutiny of CSG companies and the way they deal with landholders.
These people are going to live with the scourge of CSG mining. They have no rights, they have no say in what comes onto their property or what's done to their property. Enough's enough. We don't want any more deaths, we don't need any more deaths.
George was a hero to everybody out there. He took them on. He fought alone, like so many families in the gas fields, against the might and greed of mining companies.
I caught up with George Bender for the last time 3 months ago. And while he wasn't giving up the fight, it was clear it was wearing on him.
Because sometimes you say, oh, let's go. But where would you go? To find a better country? Probably, you just wouldn't do it.
So you got to stick with it for now?
You stick with it and put up with it. That'll do? Yeah, that'll do.
That's good. On the weekend, So many came to George Bender's funeral service in Chinchilla that people spilled from the church. Helen Bender told mourners that the family is vowing to keep George's battle going.
I'm very determined to make sure that we keep this going. I'm certainly not going to be losing anything without a huge, huge fight. And I'll do that. I have to. It was my dad. He's my dad. He will always be my dad.
The Bender family has lived and worked in this district for 108 years. Out here, the Bender roots run deep, and this tragedy has affected many.
If we had more of George in the world, we wouldn't have so much problem. I'll miss him. I just wish there was a phone to heaven, but so I could ring him up.